Most of the songs produced then often used tension and release as an effect. These kinds of songs were introduced into the music industry in the late 1960s by bands like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and Deep Purple. A lot of fans expressed displeasure. Some felt the lyrics were not just it, and others just felt they could not vibe with the song. Even at that, lots of bands, including the Beatles, also continued producing heavy songs, leaving a legacy behind. This legacy has made countless bands and artists still produce new heavy music even today. What Beatles song did you feel could pass as a heavy song? What songs do you feel are their top heaviest songs? We'll dive right into this detail. But before we do so, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exclusive content on the Beatles. The Beatles originally started their musical career as a skiffle band before evolving into other genres of music. Skiffle is a combination of American folk music, jazz, and the blues played with several instruments. Most of the fans get to classify the Beatles band as classic rock or rock and roll, but the truth is, such a generic description. It hardly does justice to the band, as it is impossible to limit the Fab Four to just one particular genre of music. Today, the Beatles remain one of the most successful music acts of all time, surpassing the likes of King, Elvis Presley, and the King of Pop, Michael Jackson, and so many others. The Fab Four, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, refused to be limited to one genre of music. They went far beyond the definition of rock and roll and pop music. The top 8 heaviest Beatles songs include: Number 1. Helter Skelter. The song Helter Skelter is famous not for being the genesis of heavy metal, but as an inspiration for Charles Manson, who chose its title as a name for his freaky theories about the apocalypse. He so much believed in his theories and was convinced that some of the lyrics contained prophecies about a coming world war. Described on the eminent Wikipedia as proto-metal, the song has heavy bass and even heavier drums, with Paul McCartney screaming over it in his best rock and roll style. It can easily be compared to Led Zeppelin or early Black Sabbath, and it's a fair assumption that these metal trailblazers would have been influenced by this raucous track. Paul McCartney's Helter Skelter, the most rocking thing the Fab Four recorded, easily tops this list of the 10 heaviest Beatles songs. That repeating guitar line is the harbinger of every punk, metal, and hardcore song subsequently written. This song shows a different side of the Fab Four's music. Number 2. Happiness is a Warm Gun. From the Beatles, the original album. John Lennon wrote this particular song to bring out a warm and cozy feeling. It was from a book by Peanuts cartoonist Charles M. Schulz, and it wasn't the first rush of bliss that happens when heroin hits the veins. This song was nothing like the peace-loving John Lennon we knew. Originally appearing on 1968's The Beatles, better known as the White Album, Happiness is a Warm Gun is about as heavy as they come, with odd-time signature changes and lyrics and a back-crap crazy outro courtesy of Sir John. The song was positively received by music critics, who highlighted the song's complex structure. However, the song was later banned by the BBC due to its sexually suggestive lyrics. Number 3. Think for Yourself. From Rubber Soul. This song was written by the band's lead guitarist, George Harrison. Among musicologists, the composition has been recognized as adventurous in the degree of total ambiguity. Although some Beatles fans may disagree, Rubber Soul has a heavy song on it, and that song is George Harrison's Think for Yourself, which is drenched in what is happily described on the back of the US LP as Paul on fuzz bass. The instruments used during the recording in place of the original instruments gave the song a distorted sound. Number 4. Hey Bulldog. Hey Bulldog is no doubt the number 4 song on the inventory of the top 10 heaviest Beatles songs. Originally appearing on 1969's Yellow Submarine, this is proto-prog metal at its finest. The sinister lead guitar riff, down to the dark lyrics, just points out something off about the song. The song makes us think of that scene with a guy in the bear suit in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining for some reason. Number 5. She Said, from Revolver. Lennon described this song as an acidy song with lyrics inspired by actor Peter Fonda's comments during an LSD trip in August 1965 with members of the Beatles and the Byrds. With the riff at the beginning and the drug-inspired lyrics, the song started with high energy. The drugged-out lyrics were provided by Easy Rider star Peter Fonda. She Said is Revolver's heaviest track. Some might argue in favor of the opener, Taxman, while others will say closer Tomorrow Never Knows rocks harder. But there's nothing like lyrics about what it's like to be dead to bring things to new levels of heaviness. There is no doubt LSD inspired the song. Number 6, Good Morning, from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This song contains the abrasive horn riff in the intro, which continues through the entire length of the song. Then, there's the lightning strike guitar solo in the middle, which forecasts the guitar heroics of the 70s and 80s heavy metal. Sgt. Pepper's Good Morning has 2 heavier than usual qualities, making it one of the top 8 heaviest Fab Four songs. Number 7, Ticket to Ride, from the 1965 single. John Lennon himself was quoted saying, "Ticket to Ride" was one of the earliest heavy metal records. When he said it, he wasn't referring to the same type of stuff Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, and Metallica would later deliver. This one's got a different style of lyrics. It was super heavy and had a sad tone at the beginning. As the song progresses, it just gets darker and more unpleasant to the ears. Number 8, Help, from Help. This is a pretty heavy song that begins and ends with words practically shouted at the listener. No rhythm, no actual melody. It's just basically John Lennon being direct with his plea for assistance. Help, he says. I need somebody. Help, he continues. Not just anybody. Help, he implores. You know I need someone. Help, he screams. That's the only thing we could grasp from the song amidst the heavy instrumentals. The Fab Four, after exploring different styles of music, still ruled the charts throughout the remainder of the 1960s. They topped the charts with different hit singles and albums that comprised any and every conceivable genre. By the time they split up in 1970, it was difficult defining the genres that the Fab Four had introduced and played. In just 6 years of recording, the Beatles had etched their music with many different styles. They were also heavily influenced by the music that was gaining popularity in that decade and often showed their gratitude to artists who had influenced them. With any discussion of musical genres, there was always a debate over the predominant category that a musical act might claim. The Beatles explored different sides of music, even heavy metal songs that were not all that popular then. When this genre of music was introduced, lots of fans expressed displeasure because they could not relate to the song's lyrics, sound, and arrangements. Heavy metal music began in the late 60s and rose to prominence in the early 70s in Britain. From its blues roots to its current fusion of sounds, it became the favorite sound of fans who like their tunes loud and aggressive. The first songs that were in this category were considered to come from Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and Deep Purple, often referred to as the Unholy Trinity. Led Zeppelin released their self-titled debut in 1969, while Black Sabbath and Deep Purple put out influential records in 1970. The Beatles are often known for coming up with songs that flow with the trend and also released heavy songs. Whether it be through happy and sad incidents in their lives, drug influence, or any other factor, the Beatles' knack for coming up with driving hard rock tunes made them a notch above the rest of the British invasion bands of the era. Psychedelia's variety of sources and styles found a direct parallel in the Beatles' musical eclecticism from the mid-1960s onwards, seen in their use of heavily effective sounds, Eastern intervals, and instruments in techniques they borrowed from the classical avant-garde, such as tape looping and in the incorporation of the sound. The Beatles were, however, pointed out as one of the pioneers of heavy metal music. Their songs in the late 1960s took a different turn and embraced the tune and style of heavy music. On CD 2 of the Beatles' self-titled 1968 album, known as the White Album, nestles an early example of heavy music. It was alleged that Paul must have been taking so many drugs that messed with his mind, as many of his songs on the album are pretty bluesy and rocky, unlike his usual cringe-worthy output. Other members of the Beatles crew must have had little external influences as they all brought the idea and released songs based on the heavy music tune. That's all for today's video, guys, but before we end, what do you think about the Beatles' style of heavy music? Are there still other songs you feel should be added to the list? What's your top 8 ranking? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. And if you haven't by now, ensure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any new updates about the Beatles.